Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
If you're a cafe owner or work in hospitality, it's always so hard trying to do the right thing and be eco-friendly.
But you know what isn't hard?
Tell me.
Using Eco Barista bags and cups in your cafe.
You're all too right. They're creating custom recyclable and compostable bags as well as cups and lids.
And look, these aren't just some crappy looking bags. These guys do custom print bags and cups so you can design them to match your brand. Me right here, I've got these beautiful yellow golden brown bags for my coffee company.
And I'm getting some custom bags and lids. Spoiler alert, they look amazing.
They do look amazing. So if you want to do the right thing by the planet and still look good, switch to Eco Barista for all your coffee supply needs.
When you go to the website for your first purchase, you'll receive 15% off your first order. That's 15% off your first order.
Yeah, you just have to go to ecobarista.com.au.
That's ecobarista.com.au.
Now, Kirk, I've got to ask you, are you a bit of an eco warrior?
I'm an Eco Barista.
Oh, you said the brand name.
Welcome back to the It's Just Coffee podcast, everyone. I'm Kirk Pearson.
And I'm Rowan Cook.
Today we've got a special little treat for you. I think I've campaigned harder for this guest more than any guest. Craig Simon was pretty hard, but Fleur Studd, welcome to the It's Just Coffee podcast. I botched that intro, but I've been campaigning to get Fleur Studd on the podcast for a very long time. Well, not a super long time, but recently. You've just come back from a trip from Colombia. Founder of Market Lane Coffee and Melbourne Coffee Merchants here in Melbourne. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
How was your trip to Colombia?
Oh, it was amazing. Spent 2 weeks there on the ground, traveling around. It was my actually first time in Colombia. So I had the most amazing 2 weeks there. Yeah, really special.
We'll ask you all that and more about your overseas coffee travels for your work throughout the podcast, but sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and this is completely off topic, but I just wanted to bring something up. Something very sad happened. It's a very sad day in Melbourne. We have a lot of debates about what's better and between xiaolongbao or dumplings and ravioli. There's a bit of a debate between, Italians, and Kirk claims he's Italian, even though he's not. But Din Tai Fung.
Din Tai Fung?
Gone. Shut down. Permanently closed. Emporium. My go-to spot. Where am I going to go and get my delicious xiaolongbao? Have you ever been to Din Tai Fung?
I haven't been there.
Oh.
And now I never will.
Well, we have to ask the question. Where are you on that? Like stuffed Italian kind of ravioli or more of like a dumpling xiaolongbao kind of situation?
I think I'm probably more on the ravioli.
Oh,
sorry.
Fleur's on Team Kirk.
Yep.
No.
And we also, just so you know, a bit of background on the pod. I've made a few statements. I love Italy. Was just in Italy. Think everything Italian is amazing. Well, apparently not everything, because I had some statements about their espresso and about a few things. And so I've kind of been crowned as the person that just hates Italians, which is not true. And then Kirk tries to come out and start claiming that he's Italian. So I want everyone to know at home, we've sent off the DNA kit. We got an ancestry kit. I got the message saying that it's received, even though it's under my name. So I'm screwing up all of ancestry here. They think Kirk is me. But it says 6 weeks. We should have the details, the final knowledge about whether you are Italian or not.
Ooh.
And basically to give you, so I've been, basically going on about 6.25% is my calculation of Italianness. If I'm like 0.1% higher than that, this whole podcast will never live it down. I'll just rag on about it forever because it's exciting. I've always just been, Australian, but now, I've got a bit of flavor in there.
Yeah. So I also have to say I need to start like a corner for my mate, Sebastian, who has been listening to the pod religiously. And he was quite upset with you, Kirk, because he's down to listening to 3 pods. One of them is ours. Another one is The Briefing. And straight after listening to an episode of ours, The Briefing comes on. And who happens to be on it but one Kirk Pearson? And he had enough. He'd frankly had enough Kirk Pearson. But no, you appeared on The Briefing. How was that? You were chatting about coffee prices, the current surge. And I mean, maybe Fleur will have a great insight on this as well.
We'll be able to touch on this a lot throughout the pod. But yes, I did feature on the briefing, and basically they were just asking about why coffee prices are about to go up. And there's a lot of articles written about that. There's a lot of news stories about it. And my take on a lot of that has always been there's a lot of fear mongering around coffee. Like people, they'll write news stories that are kind of designed to get you a bit agitated with relating to coffee prices. Anyway, coffee prices are going to go up was my point. Probably not by as much, like people are saying it's going to be like a $9 latte, which I'm not quite sure that checks out. But anyway, if you want to hear more about it, you can listen to it on the briefing as well.
Did you plug the pod?
Of course I plugged the pod.
Yeah.
I said to him, like, guys, you got to introduce me. Kirk from the It's Just Coffee podcast.
Yeah, I love that.
But we start off the podcast every week with a bit of news. And I've got one news story for us this week. Thanks to Rowan, actually. Rowan actually sourced this news story. I thought it was a slow news week, but Liam? Right, so Starbucks Australia have posted a loss in Australia of $5.8 million. So last year there was lots of sort of buzz around it because there's a big trend around cold drinks and things like that in Australia. And so they actually had one of their first profits in Australia. But this year they've come back down to a loss, and they've kind of put it down to more people working from home, brewing at home, less people going to the city. So I don't know, guys, I'll put it out to you. What do we kind of think? Is that a call sign for something else? Or?
I just think that Starbucks isn't cheap enough to be that like market gap. It's the same price if you're going to go somewhere else and there's much better coffee. I can understand when people are going to go to a 7-Eleven or a Coles coffee or something because they're like, oh, it's $2 or whatever, and I can get away with a cheap coffee. But if you're going in and spending $5 or $6 at Starbucks anyway, just head on down to Project Zero. You know what I mean?
Or Market Lane.
Yeah.
But what's your take on this, Fleur? Like if it's probably, I agree with you in a big way, Rowan, because if you're not saving that much money and you're not getting what is objectively a high quality coffee, I mean, who's to say you enjoy that coffee? You might enjoy the double pump, pumpkin spice, whatever. But yeah, like if you're not saving that much money, why would you go to a McDonald's or a Starbucks? I don't know.
Yeah. I think we're just so spoilt for choice here in Melbourne. And so it's hard to have cut through in this market and people really identify with their local coffee shops.
I think that was always a big part of the problem for Starbucks in Australia, right? Because they wanted to break into this really iconic coffee culture, which, you know, is recognized around the world, but probably didn't find it that easy. But I guess it's probably symptomatic of a lot of coffee shops these days.
Absolutely.
So it's a tough industry to be in about now, and I think maybe the foot traffic thing is hurting them, but we shall see.
Now, Kirk, I've got some good news for you. Today's pod is once again brought to you by our friends at Eco Barista.
Ah, Eco Barista.
Yeah, a product we both use, both love. They make eco coffee supplies. They've got recyclable, compostable bags, cups, and guess what? You can even get your own ones printed yourself. I think you're doing that right now.
I'm going through the whole motion right now with Eco Barista. I've just been having a discussion with Russ this morning, actually, on getting some boxes designed as well. So
yeah,
sneak peek.
Now these guys are great, and they're B Corp certified, so you know you're doing the right thing when you work with them. And the great thing, if you're a new customer, if you sign up now on the website, you get 15% off. That's at ecobarista.com.au.
Ecobarista.com.au.
Now, Kirk, are you a bit of an eco warrior?
No, I'm an Eco Barista.
Oh,
that's our pun.
What a tagline.
That's our pun.
Now, Fleur, into the questions. The first one we ask everyone, what's your coffee order?
Ooh. Well, at home, when I wake up, it's a filter coffee made by my children. We have a mocha master at home. So they make me a mocha master first thing in the morning.
How old are the kids?
Amazing. They're 8 and 10.
I used to do the same thing for my dad. I used to make his coffee every morning. I just hated the taste of the coffee, but the smell of it grinding and going, unbelievable.
So good. They know how to weigh it. They come in and they say, Mum, is it 45 grams today or 60 grams? They've got the ratios worked out. So that's first thing in the morning.
I wasn't quite that good. You've got the grams and ratios.
That's getting really good utility out of your children, especially at such a young age.
It's so good.
The kids are like, I've spiked the water with magnesium, and so
we'll get there.
And then it's usually a flat white if I walk into Market Lane first thing, but filter coffee is normally a washed filter coffee is normally my order of choice.
Yeah, the wash, the go-to. Now, I got to say, Market Lane, somewhere is a good establishment and run well when you go in and all of the staff are so happy and so kind. I don't know if there's a cafe or series of cafe across the board that I go into where the people are as welcoming and lovely every time that you go in. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. That makes me so happy. We have the best team.
They're so good. Like wherever I go, because I'll go into the one just here in Carlton where we're at. I go into the Queen Vic Market all the time, both in the market and the little one outside. Every time greeted really nicely. I did have one guy that knew who I was from the videos and actually like came out and like hugged me across the room, which was very lovely. And everyone else in the coffee shop's like, what the hell is going on?
Do you get everyone to like meditate or something before shift? How do you get them so calm? How do you get them so zen?
Oh, I think our HR, like people and culture team, do an amazing job at just finding people that love people and love serving people and love talking to people. We've worked really hard to build a really supportive culture within the team. Every time our team get together at bigger events, I get quite overwhelmed and quite emotional because there's so many special people.
How do you set culture? Like you're a growing business, always opening up more shops. Bean side of things is getting sort of bigger as well. This is an unscripted question. How do you sort of establish that culture?
Great question. It's something that we work hard at all the time. We put a lot of thought and care into how we induct people into the business. And people that join our team will spend up to a week of training and really understanding our ethos, why we do things the way we do. They'll spend time cupping with us. They'll spend time unpacking our mission and vision and values. And so we really try and bring people on in a really considered and thoughtful way. And we're really lucky. We've got a lot of long-term staff who've stayed with the business for some of them up to over a decade. And I think those people have really helped pass on that culture and helped us foster it and nurture it over that time too.
Because that's one of the biggest things in a coffee shop, right? That continuity of kind of people. When you go in, you see people you're familiar with, so important, they remember your name. They're kind of like almost as good as being able to make coffee good in a way. It's like almost if you were to have a skill, and it's not something you can really just hire. It's something you have to sort of teach and impose, like, I guess, have your culture influence them on. So yeah, that's a good little question.
When you're going to that much effort to source all this great coffee and tell that story, every time like I'll order a coffee, the person brings it out, they'll be like, oh, have you had this one before? Oh, so this one's amazing because it's blah, 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 and it's got this and it's going to taste like this and this and this. So it's like every time there's like that story from all the sourcing all the way to the cup is just expressed. It's one of the best experiences you'll have. And you know that because your tote bags are bloody everywhere.
Yeah.
I can't walk down the street without seeing a Market Lane tote bag and they look good.
Well, let's ask this question now while the topic's hot.
Yeah.
How many tote bags do you reckon are out there in circulation? Because I've been traveling. So 6 years ago, I went to Brazil and I saw a Market Lane tote. I was in Korea, year after, Market Lane tote. Japan, Market Lane tote. Visited my dad in New Zealand, Market Lane tote. Where are they in every single country on earth? And why do you think they're so popular?
I don't know. They really have taken on a life of their own and people really love them. They love the different colours that we release. I actually caught up with a mum this morning whose daughter's just started at RMIT and she came home and said, Mum, does Market Lane sponsor RMIT? Because there were all these students walking around with their tote bags. But yeah, people really do love them.
When you planned to sort of stock the item as merchandise, did you think they would blow up so big?
No, and the logo's really big on them. And we weren't sure if it was too big, but they feel like they've become synonymous with Melbourne and with coffee, and they're also well made, so they last a really long time. So people really enjoy the durability and functionality of them, which is good.
So, and I suppose culturally totes are a big thing around here. But let's start off on the coffee journey of Fleur Studd, because in researching for this, I was reading that you actually had another job and you had moved to London for that job. And then all of a sudden you've been frequenting Monmouth Coffee over there. You kind of fell in love with it and you quit your job and then started working for Monmouth. What were you doing before you started working in coffee?
So I was working at lastminute.com, which was a travel and kind of leisure online business that blew up in the early 2000s. Really fun job. I worked there for about 5 years in marketing, and joined them as a junior burger, and then worked my way up in that team. But became really curious about coffee while I was living in the UK, frequented Monmouth Coffee a lot. And then we decided to move home at the start of 2008. And I was very curious about scratching this itch and learning more about coffee, because I could see there was a giant gap in the market in Australia at that time for specialty coffee and for coffee that had traceability and transparency. And at the time in Australia, there was only kind of people bringing in more commercial lots of coffee that didn't have any of that transparency and traceability. But I needed to see if coffee was something that I could be deeply passionate about. So I went to Monmouth and asked them if I could work with them for free, which I thought was an amazing offer.
Yeah,
and
I'll take it.
Yeah, but they were very generous and said, "Yes, you can come on board, and we will teach you." And so I said I can stay with you for as long as my money lasts. I had some savings. My husband actually moved back to Australia at that time, and I stayed on in the UK for about 6 months and worked at Monmouth. And they were amazing. They let me work in the roastery. They let me work behind the bar. And that's where I fell in love with coffee.
Was there any hesitation in your mind when you thought about doing this as well? Because I think when I studied journalism, I wanted to be a journalist or economist for the longest time. And I think I kind of had to sell it to my dad that I wanted a career in coffee. Were you the same at all? Like, did you feel like, oh, how am I going to make ends meet? Will I disappoint my parents or whatever? Did you have any of those sorts of reservations when you did it?
Not at that time. I was 28 or 27. My partner was really supportive at the time. My dad was really excited about coffee, and actually in the early days was coming along to tastings with me and really curious as well about the coffee industry. And it was quite low risk. Like I was spending some savings working in this business, but that was the only risk I was really taking at that time. So, and then when I fell in love with it, it was just a no-brainer. So it was actually selling coffee beans to customers at the bean bar at Monmouth. Monmouth has been around since 1978.
They're still kicking?
Still kicking.
Yeah.
Amazing business, founded by this incredible woman called Anita Leroy. Very values-driven, has always platformed the producer, always focused on paying great prices for the coffee, always deeply cared about the producers that she's working with. And because they've been around for so long, they've got this very loyal clientele who come in, they buy coffee. Over 50% of their revenue is from coffee beans. So when you work behind the bean bar there, you're literally serving coffee all day to consumers who are queuing up to buy coffee for home. And the way they sell coffee is you'll come up, where they really encourage giving tastings to people. So we would offer tastings and we would engage and talk to
So
customers.
it's kind of like the ice cream, have a little sample of each thing, but coffee edition?
Yeah, absolutely. And through that, it's so powerful because people would taste the coffee. You would have the opportunity to engage them, talk to them about where the coffee was from, and see them get really excited and deeply connect with the product that they were taking home. And that's when I fell in love with coffee, was talking to customers about coffee and getting them excited about the beans they were buying.
I've read a quote about of yours online that I wanted to read to you, and then we'll discuss it. So, and you said, talking about Market Lane, anytime we have considered expanding our offering beyond coffee, we have always ultimately thought better of it. So this might be a mistake that is continuously avoided. I think our superpower as a business is our simplicity and narrow focus on doing one thing extremely well, providing exceptional coffee. We're not really good at much else, and a big lesson has been that we don't need to be and shouldn't try to be. Now, the reason I read this to you and about to ask this question is, why do you think it's good for a business to kind of just essentially just stick to what you're good at? Because I feel like there's something a lot of hospitality venues, businesses in general, could learn from this.
I think, especially at the time when we opened in Melbourne, there were a lot of coffee shops offering food first and foremost, so doing a cooked breakfast, and definitely offering a very extensive menu beyond coffee. And we really wanted to be specialists. We really wanted to set the bar really high for great coffee. And so having that really singular focus felt really, really important. So there was lots of things that we didn't do. So at the time, we consciously chose just to offer one milk, a full cream milk, not a skinny milk, which now doesn't feel like a big deal, but 15 years ago was a huge deal. Most people ordered a skinny latte.
Yeah.
We chose not to offer tea. We chose not to offer hot chocolate. So there were a lot of things that we said if we can't do things to the very high standard, like if it felt like a disservice to not do tea to the same standard that we were doing with our coffee. So I think what we learned through that experience is that it's really easy to not offer things and add them to your menu. It's really hard to offer things and then take them away.
Yeah.
So I think for businesses when they're maybe starting out, just keeping things very simple at the start and then knowing that you can add things in is a much better way to do things rather than taking.
Well, I think this is like a great lesson for people, starting out in business nowadays. Kind of sticking to one thing and sticking to what you're good at is something really good. We had Dan Dick on the podcast a few months ago. We always mention Dan Dick on this podcast. But anyway, alas, he kind of spoke about how there's like florists and stuff that make coffee, and you can go to a hairdresser a lot of the time in Melbourne on a high street and get a coffee nowadays if you like. I kind of feel like it's better for businesses if you just kind of, stick to your singular thing. Like sandwich shops, for a lot of the sandwich shops in Melbourne could probably just sell sandwiches and not coffee, and they do arguably better. Agree, disagree, Rowan?
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I see it fits sometimes, but there's like a lot of places that I look up and I'm like, you've got an EK in there. You've got a really expensive grinder. I'm like, how many coffees are you selling to like justify the cost of this thing, you know?
But it's also having the people trained to be able to do it. And like, if your heart's not fully in it, then you're not doing it as well. And people can kind of pick up on that. You won't sell as many over the long run. That's something I'm big on at the moment.
Especially in batch brew, if you're not selling much, coffee, I bet you people just sit it there in the vat all day as it gets old and stale and manky, and then they serve it up.
Filter coffee's a hard one to make good. I feel like there's a lot of places that sell filter coffee in Australia nowadays, but like very few places where you're like, oh, geez, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's just my hot take.
Yeah. And Fleur, you're actually just going to tell us that you guys are adventuring to sandwich making now at Market Lane.
Well, we are actually.
Yeah.
We do have sandwiches now at Market Lane in Paran and in Collins Street. We also have recently added hot chocolate to our menu.
Oh, I love a hot chockey.
Do you source your own?
No, we don't. We use Mork. So we're doing a great job. And we offer tea at Collins Street in Paran. And we're just about to launch decaf this Thursday, which we're really excited about because we've found this incredible. We've been doing lots of tasting, and we've got some coffee that's been processed in Colombia using the EA sugarcane method, and it's so delicious. So we feel really proud and excited to serve that coffee.
Is this the first time you'll, as Market Lane, have sold decaf?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Wow.
After how many years? 15?
15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you, for the listeners who don't know, do you know much about that process of decaffeinating it? Would you be able to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we actually visited the plant while we were in Colombia. So there's different ways of getting caffeine out of the coffee bean. The EA sugarcane method uses ethyl acetate, which is a compound that's found in lots of fruit like bananas and apples. They extract the ethyl acetate from sugarcane in Colombia. And basically the coffee bean is cleaned, the silver skin is removed, and then they steam the coffee bean to open up the pores. They soak it in the ethyl acetate, and the ethyl acetate is quite targeted, so it binds with the caffeine very quickly and removes it in quite a targeted way. They kind of wash the ethyl acetate through the coffee bean, I think 5 or 6 times, and then they remove the caffeine and the ethyl acetate, and then they wash the coffee and dry it really carefully, and then they polish it with this wax that's the same wax that they use in gummy bears.
You had me at gummy bears.
Done.
And that helps seal the coffee and protect it from aging.
Right, like degassing and oxidizing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's really delicious. The thing that we're most excited about is that the coffee still retains its taste of place.
Yep.
And also from what we've experienced so far, it doesn't prematurely age. And I think that's it's quite a gentle process in the way that and I think the way they're also sealing it is part of the magic as well.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I tell you what, if you want, send a bag this way and we'll do it, have some live on the pod and taste out that decaf and do a talk. Because I was saying to Kirk, I was like, we need to do each week and maybe, if next week or whenever it is, we could do this one here. But I'm like, I want to get feature a different roaster each week and just have at the start of each one, what coffee we're drinking, just as a nice way to open the world up to different places and different experiences. So I think that could be cool.
I'm looking forward to trying some of this decaf though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's delicious. It doesn't taste like decaf. It just tastes like coffee.
Well, maybe we need to blind taste it against another one or something and see if we can pick it up. Now, one question. So you run one of Melbourne's most successful coffee companies in Market Lane and Melbourne Coffee Merchants. But would you say everyone sees it as, this amazing success? Has there been any really difficult moments for you, moments where you felt like maybe you'd lose it or couldn't do it? And what have those challenges been like?
Yeah, I think that the deepest, darkest days were those early days of COVID. They were terrifying. I remember the accountant rang me. He's like, "Don't buy any coffee, Fleur. Stop right now. Don't buy anything." Thankfully, at the time, most of our coffee was either on the water and it was too late, and we didn't have to default on any contracts. There was one container from Ethiopia that we were planning on buying that didn't, but we didn't have to default on any contracts at that time. But it was terrifying, especially for Market Lane. We had over 70 employees in that business, and we interviewed everyone to try and work out what their status was. So what their visa status was, what their living situation was, to try and work out how many people on our team were vulnerable. And then we were running the numbers on how much money we could have if we had to shut all of our cafes, which we assumed we would because that was what was happening in New Zealand, and we were copying everything that New Zealand was doing. And ran the numbers on how long we could pay those staff members, especially the ones that wouldn't have got anything from the government and we didn't have a backup, and just how long we could do that for. So at that point, it was so heart-wrenchingly terrifying because we felt so responsible for our team at that time.
I suppose it went from a matter of at that time for you guys, all right, well, this is happening in terms of whatever restrictions they're putting on. Then there's you're meeting with your team, okay, what do we do if this happens? And then it changes again because I guess when that first sort of started back then, everything escalated rather quickly within days. So I guess it probably was just 2 weeks of nonstop planning for disaster.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that we did over that period was just communicate with our team constantly. Even when we didn't have the answers, we would give them an update and say, this is what we understand. This is what it means for you. This is what we can guarantee you. And just kept on trying to communicate because it was so terrifying for everyone at that time. But ultimately, COVID was okay and we were okay.
Yeah.
But it was a really hard time to be working in service. The baristas in the shops, wearing masks, serving customers, also playing really important roles within the community at that time. I had so many customers after COVID who would say, I would come into Coventry Street or Faraday Street and literally it would be the only conversation I would have over the period. And the baristas at that time were having to hold space for those customers and be really welcoming. And
yeah, in the best of times, baristas are counsellors. Back then, you had to really, up the council for people, I guess. But one thing I guess I have to personally thank you for is introducing me by just selling it to Bolivian coffee, because Bolivian coffee, it's one of the rarer types of specialty coffee, one of the rarer producing nations, I guess you could say. How did you kind of come about sourcing coffee from Bolivia? Because at the time that you did, it was probably only you and maybe Stephen Leighton over in the UK. How did that all come about, meeting the Rodriguez family?
So our first trip to Bolivia was in 2011. I'll never forget it. I went with Paul from Mecca Coffee in Sydney, and we had to drive along Death Road, which is this crazy road that kind of clings to
when I went, I was in tears on the car ride to the farm. It was jet lag and then whiplash because the roads are just horrible. Then you think you're going to fall off a cliff and rocks sliding onto you.
Yep.
Crazy.
Terrifying. Thankfully, they've improved the road a lot over the last 15 years. But at the time it was terrifying. But the Rodriguez family are an incredible family. They, at the time, most of their work was focused on sourcing coffee from small producers in the region. And they had a wet mill where they would process their coffee and then help find a market for it. It's actually Bolivia where we first sourced our first full container of coffee. So for the first couple of years of Melbourne Coffee Merchants, we would do pre-mixed pellets for customers. And we, at the time, partnered with an exporter in the UK called Macanta. So they took us on our first trip to Bolivia. And then as we scaled and grew, we started to source coffee directly. So now all of the buying relationships we have are independent and directly with producers. But at that time, we were working with Macanta. And one of the big things that we tried to do with Melbourne Coffee Merchants is really platform and celebrate and talk about Bolivian coffee in particular and Rwandan coffee, because they're two coffee origins that perhaps weren't as well known and really needed help kind of being promoted and getting people excited about those coffees.
And it was 2013, there was like a mass leaf rust event that swept through South America sort of thing and really impacted Bolivian coffee? Yeah,
that's right. And that's when the Rodriguez family decided to really start focusing on their own production as well as buying from small producers. But they realized they had to do a lot of work in changing the way that coffee was produced there and doing things in a more kind of scientific way. A lot of the families that were producing coffee had inherited coffee, the coffee farms, and weren't pruning the coffee, weren't giving nutrition to the plants. And so a lot of their farms were obliterated during that time.
So if I were to just take a step back here, so leaf rust for those, it's like a fungal infection that affects coffee plants, right? So it was something that how much did it reduce the yield of Bolivian coffee by? I think it was like it basically just wiped out a lot of crops in around 2013. I think I got all this information from your website. So, but then nowadays, like, and they've done wonderful work up until now. The Rodriguez family, one family in Bolivia, they kind of rebuilt Bolivian coffee in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like coffee production in Bolivia is tiny.
Yeah.
But I think it went from 80,000 bags to 20,000 bags. So it had a devastating effect on coffee production there. But they've built these incredible farms and shared the knowledge that they've learnt with the smaller producers in the region. And now when we visit the farms, they're totally transformed and they've drastically impacted the yields that the coffee producers are able to get from their coffee plantations, and so impacted the amount of money that those families are now earning. And you can really see it and feel it when you're there.
Yeah, and it's such a remote part of the earth as well, getting to some coffee farms. And this is something that you realize once you go to a coffee producing nation, it's like it's so hard to actually hand pick all the coffee, and then the journey that some of it has to make, like the road just to get it to port, is just really, really difficult.
Absolutely, yeah.
So one thing that I've kind of picked up about you and working with Melbourne Coffee Merchants myself is like you guys are really big on partnerships and on relationships. Is this something that you kind of feel like helps kind of navigate business in tough times, or just in general? Like, why is that such an important thing to you guys?
I think when I think about why I'm in business or what I love about doing what I do, it really is about the people and the relationships that we're connected to through Melbourne Coffee Merchants and Market Lane. And that starts with the producers that we work with. We really try and set up relationships that are long term. And show up every single year to buy coffee from those coffee producers, really try and platform their coffees and build a market for the producers' coffees that we source.
Like Santa Isabel here. I see that every year in Melbourne.
Yep. And we see that, we see our role as importers and as retailers as we take that role very seriously, and just trying to connect consumers with those coffees and with the stories behind those coffees. So I think it kind of starts there, and then it extends to the way that we think about our role as employers, what it means to be an employer, the responsibility that involves, and trying to be really good employers of people. And it extends to other supplier relationships like Schultz, who produces our milk for Market Lane, the suppliers. Like we do great collaborations with like-minded businesses that care about the same things that we do. And then our customers, we're connected with so many incredible coffee roasters and with the end consumer. So that's that at its essence. That's the thing that I love most about what I do is the people and those relationships.
Now, traveling abroad for coffee, you can often be met with a lot of confronting things. There's violence, there's poverty. A lot of this happens in these kind of coffee producing areas and nations. Is there anything that you think the general public should know about any confronting things that they should know in the context of looking at ethically sourced coffee?
Good question. I think
This episode is brought to you by Walmart. New beauty is in bloom at Walmart, and it's all about springtime radiance. From Drybar, Tula Skincare, and hundreds more available online, Walmart has the premium brands you want and this season's on-trend products for flawless, glossy hair and hydrated skin. Big name beauty brands? Check. The things you love? Check. Find trending spring beauty and all you need to look and feel gorgeous at Walmart, on app and online.
I think the thing that always strikes me when I'm traveling and spending time with our coffee producing partners is the power that buying coffee that's been ethically sourced and where a good premium price has been paid for the quality, the power that can have to transform and impact a community or a producer. And you can see that in really clear ways. Like, for example, when we spend time in Rwanda, coffee in Rwanda and specialty coffee in Rwanda has played a really important role post the genocide in creating a really important source of income for lots and lots of small families producing coffee. If they're getting paid a good price for their coffee, it becomes a viable source of income for them. And you can see the transformational effect that can have in so many ways in rebuilding the fabric of those communities, and in improving the livelihoods of the people that are producing it. I saw it again in Colombia recently. We met with this incredible women's group called Amica. They're in El Tambo in Popayan, in Cauca, and it's 60 women who have banded together to share knowledge and market their coffees collectively. They're really focused on specialty. At the time when they dreamt up the organisation 30 years ago, they were met with a lot of resistance within the community, particularly from the men, saying, "Why are you focusing on this specialty thing?" And they said, no, if we focus on being more selective in the way that we're picking our coffee and processing it, we can get a better return. And now you see these women who are so incredibly proud, so enterprising. There's so much joy and camaraderie between them. And I think that's where I get really motivated when I see these communities doing such a great job and producing such delicious coffee. I'm really motivated to build a market for those coffees and connect consumers to them and their stories.
Yeah, that's amazing.
This probably segues really well into what we're going to ask you about next, and that is about the current commodity price for coffee. So it's been very hot news, even in the mainstream media. But basically, I think from this time last year, the commodity price for coffee has increased by 50%. So when I checked this morning, it was $3.34 US a pound. How do you think about that as the owner of a coffee importing business? So, like, what does this mean for you in the next year going forward and the customers that you have?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I don't check the sea price every day. And when we were in Colombia, it was going through the roof. And so it did become a topic of conversation while we were there. But the reason I don't check the sea price is most of the time it's so far below what we're paying for coffee that it's not something that I really need to consider in any of the conversations I'm having with producers. Obviously, at the moment, it's very high, so it definitely is having an impact. It's really interesting. Like at the moment, it's great for producers. They're getting great returns for their coffee, and that's great, and that's the way it should be, and we should be paying more for coffee. I think one of the things that's tricky in Colombia, one of the conversations we were having is it's so good right now And the reaction to this is go and plant more coffee. And so lots of coffee producers are making great returns, but they're also planting more coffee. And so probably in 3 to 5 years' time, we're going to have this glut of coffee and the price is going to crash again.
But there's like increasing demand from a lot of corners of the world for coffee as well. So maybe that meets like that new threshold of people that are wanting coffee.
I hope so, yes.
And India's blowing up, China's going off. There's huge demand. You know what I want to keep track of? That Luckin Coffee in the States.
Yeah.
I want to keep track of that.
I think they might even have more stores than Starbucks now, just in China. Ooh. Like there's so many. Obviously, you would know Luckin Coffee.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Fleur Studd doesn't know.
It's like the Chinese Starbucks.
It's like a massive franchise in China, and they just committed to buying, I think it was 240,000 tons of coffee from Brazil.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's kind of, I think analysts have seen that, and that's why the commodity prices kind of shot up. But do you think it will ever go back down to where it was before? Because I think it was in 2020, it was below $1 US per pound. And not that this kind of influences your dealings in buying coffee, as you kind of explained before, but do you think it will ever go back down? Because I don't know I think it will, but perhaps not to as low as it was before.
I really hope it doesn't. But I think what we've seen over time is that the nature of the market is that it is very volatile and it does have big highs and big lows, and that's what makes it so difficult for coffee producers. So really ideally we wouldn't be operating and trading coffee in such a speculative way. And so for us, the reason we don't look at the market is because we are really trying to give producers a really sustainable, viable form of income that rewards the quality that they're producing. But yeah, in the current market, we have to pay higher premiums than maybe we have because it's gone beyond that in some of the cases.
7-Eleven coffee is going to be $3 next year.
$3. It's going to be back to the price that everyone's complaining that they wanted at now. $3.50 for a 7-Eleven.
Could be $3.50 for a 7-Eleven. I don't know.
Classic. Now, taking a bit of a left turn here, Attica, ranked one of the best restaurants in the world year after year after year. Now, Ben Shuri made this famous bolognese. I think it was during COVID. Your hubby got to be the taste tester for this.
Yeah.
What? How?
Yeah.
I need a new publicist. I need someone getting me in the door, taste testing the bolognese of Attica.
We
How
have
did this
eaten
happen?
so much bolognese, I can't tell you. So Ben's become a very good friend. We supply coffee to his restaurant. And so we've become very good friends, and he was talking a lot about his bolognese journey, and Simon put his hand up to become the recipe tester. He's a good enough cook that he kind of knows the basics, but not a chef, so could ask stupid questions along the way as well. So we've worked our way through 3 levels of bolognese. So there's the family shuri bolognese, and then there's a bolognese ragu, and then there's the obsession level. So at one point we were soaking livers in milk for 2 weeks and curing our own bacon. But our kids are really used to it now, so we're never going to be able to go back.
Which is the best iteration?
We mainly do the ragu one in our house. The obsession level it's a lot.
Can you give me a quick rundown of like this ragu? Like what's the process? Just a quick.
There's lots of different steps. There's a sofrito that takes about an hour to make. I mean, you should know all these techniques. Well,
I'm asking because I think I want to make it.
You got to you have to use a whisk.
Yep.
Oh no, you're not allowed to use a whisk. You have to use a wooden spoon that's square.
The square wooden spoon.
Yeah, there's like 2 bottles of Nebbiolo that go in. There's sticks of French butter.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is because I've seen recipes online. Would that be the same one, or is it like?
Yeah, it's published in his book.
Okay.
So he's published all 3 recipes in his book.
I'm getting it. I'm making it. And are we good enough friends now that the next time this happens, you can just give me a call? Yeah, please. I'd love to pop over.
We have it in our freezer all the time.
Yeah.
I just picked up more meat from Gary's this morning to make the next batch.
Oh,
There we go.
goodness. Now, speaking of food legends, I can't go through a podcast without bringing it up. Your dad, a cheese master, the cheese king, Will Studd. What was it like growing up with this guy? How much cheese were you eating as a kid?
So much. Our car stank of cheese and a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
And we still do. We're so lucky. Like, we do eat a lot of cheese.
What are some of your favorites?
Oh, the main thing we always have to have in our fridge is Parmesan and Comté. They're the two staples, and if they're in my fridge, I'm happy. And French butter.
French butter's that's where it's at.
What's your dad's best use of cheese?
It's funny, like it's just it is something we've always just grown up with in our fridge. So it's something that will come out maybe before dinner. We'll all have a couple of slices and then it will go away again. Mainly it's consumed in that way.
I'm not a cheese guy. I like hard cheeses I can eat, but I'm not a big cheese guy. But there's like some that I've warmed to, like I don't remember the names of it, but it's typically the harder cheeses I'll dabble in.
Fleur, question for me behind here. What's special about French butter? Or what's different about French butter?
It's the butter that he sources has been, I think it's been made by hand with a wooden wooden barrette.
Oh, with a square wooden.
I think I should know the answers to these questions. I don't even know, but I think it's the flavor. I think it's the grasses that the cows eat, the quality of the milk.
What's like if you were to describe it palate wise, like how is it different? Just creamier?
Creamy, sweet, not rancid in any way. Like, creamy and sweet. Yeah, and clean would be how I'd describe it. But I love cooking with it. We put it on toast like it's cheese, like quite thick. We eat a lot of butter as a family.
Don't you find that whenever like people go to like a really expensive restaurant, they're spending hundreds of dollars a head, blah, 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 because a lot of those restaurants make their own bread and butter and that kind of thing. The number one thing everyone goes like, what was your favorite thing? Everyone's like, oh, the bread was good, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like they've done like sea urchin and all these crazy things, like the bread.
Well, I guess you've got such a comparison point, right? Like bread and butter is something that everyone's had before, whereas a lot of the time you go to a fine dine experience, you haven't tried the majority of the things on the menu, whereas the bread comes out, you're like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, but sometimes the bread at those fine dining places is pretty fire with the butter, you know? Like that first course, before you even get to the first course, I'm like, oh, damn, this is good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It's
like what everyone loves. Like it's like the number one thing.
I agree. Fleur, is there anything?
Anyhow,
alas,
you could make biofuel out of that.
You could definitely make biofuel out of that. Is there anything, do you reckon, the coffee industry could learn from the cheese industry? Like, is there anything cheese does well that you think, oh, damn, maybe we could do that better?
I think there's a lot of similarities. So, like there's amazing artisan cheese producers using very old techniques that have been passed through generations that are at risk of maybe disappearing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Absolutely. Because of the commercialization of dairy and the cheese industry, maybe the next generation not wanting to take on those practices.
Well, I guess that's something that, the coffee industry is kind of grappling with now as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've been very influenced by my dad in the way and that kind of values, seeing him wildly passionate about what he does, seeing him deeply committed to quality, and seeing him really carve out a market for specialty cheese in Australia. There's a lot of similarities with what I've tried to do with coffee. So he's been a huge influence on me in that way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between artisan cheese and specialty coffee. It's
really interesting to learn because it's kind of like I lived with my dad for a little bit and he had a horse stud. And I actually think looking
is
back.
that one of your siblings, horse stud?
My siblings are.
Lol. But like I kind
last name Stud, everyone. Last name is Stud. It's a classic joke.
I look back on it now. I kind of wish I could live back on the farm again, like having an acreage and all those kinds of things. But yeah, I guess it's a bit of a shame that some of these traditional cheese makers, coffee producers, even dairy farmers in Australia, like they're under threat because that next generation's thinking, oh, I want to go do something else. So it's kind of something a little bit worrying, and I kind of hope doesn't happen too much. If I'm given the option, maybe I'm taking the farm these days. Maybe, like if someone said to me, do you want to be a cheesemaker? You know what? Yeah, sure. It'd be pretty good. I wouldn't mind getting out of the city.
I was just up in Riverina. It was pretty great. Yeah. One of our filmmakers, Harry, was just like, I reckon they'd maybe take me on for like a month internship. I could just go up, work on the farm, It was bloody great.
Well, Fleur did it with Monmouth. Maybe Harry can get it done with, the producers in the
No, we need him here. Don't give him that opportunity.
Don't encourage him.
Here's you being like, here's how I'm supporting all my staff. I'm like, no, lock him in the back. Keep him working.
One question I have for you, for Fleur. What would you like to see more of in the coffee industry?
Cheese.
Cheese, more cheese, more butter. I think more people committing to paying good prices and prioritizing long relationships with coffee producers.
Very Mark Dundon answer.
Yeah.
You and Mark Dundon. Do you know Mark?
I do.
Get along really well.
He's great. He was our first customer, Melbourne Coffee Merchants.
Yeah, right.
Really?
Do they still buy coffee, 7-2s?
They don't. They do all their buying direct, but our first pallet of coffee was sold to Mark, and I feel very aligned with values and the way.
So you'd like to see more people buying these? Sorry, I forgot an answer.
Oh, just prioritizing buying, like supporting the same producers or buying from the same producers every year.
And what are some of the benefits like you've gotten from doing that? Like, for example, with Guatemala, Santa Isabel, every year it's on the menu at Market Lane. Like, what are kind of some of the benefits of that?
Well, the benefits from the producer is that they're really secure in the relationship. They know that we're going to be showing up. We're going to be buying the same quality or ideally more if they're wanting to sell more, and we're growing with them. And so they can invest in the farm knowing that we'll be there paying them the same price or more if their cost of production has gone up every year. And for us, it means that we've got access to these beautiful coffees year in, year out. There's a lot of trust in these relationships. There's a lot of transparency. And it goes both ways. So if they have a really tough harvest, maybe the quality is not as good, we'll still be there showing up, buying the coffee from them. If the C price goes through the roof, they might help stabilize their pricing a bit to not react to that, knowing that when the price has been down at $1.20, we were still paying a really big premium for that coffee. So there's definitely, there's a two-way in the benefit of that long-term relationship, that happens. But, the more that our customers are committing, like our roasting customers are committing to buying a coffee, the more that we can then forecast with that coffee producer and say, hey, we think we can grow our volumes this year by this amount, and they can, invest in their farms with that knowledge.
So, and can you tell us a little bit about, you've brought us in some coffee. I love a guest that brings a gift. What a time. We might actually, maybe in the coffee break, we can whip this out and brew it up. And we do an episode after this where we kind of like just rehash talk about what we just did. What is it called? Like The Walking Dead, when they used to have like the Talking Dead, like the show after the show where we just break out the great moments, break it down. Tell us a little bit about this. So what have we got here? We've got the Santa Isabel.
Yep, this is produced by, we call him Huicho. His name's Luis Valdez. He's got a beautiful farm in Caban in Guatemala. I think we've been buying his coffee since 2011. We first bought it in the Cup of Excellence and fell in love with it there, and then we've bought it every year since. He's got a very beautiful farm, and it's one of those coffees that when we cut through the lineup each year of Guatemala, you can find Santa Isabel on the table and you know it because it's such a distinct and special coffee. It's always got really beautiful fruit character, lots of florals. And the thing that's really cool about what he's doing at the moment is he's really started to move towards more biodynamic and organic practices on his farm. So he's reduced his coffee production quite significantly, but is investing in using a lot of natural fertilizers to fertilize the coffee trees to combat leaf rust. He's doing a lot with shade. So really kind of shaking up the way that he's traditionally produced coffee, with the view to do things more sustainably and also hopefully deliver an even more delicious cup. But yeah, just an outstanding coffee that we love every year.
Yes, well, beautiful. We're going to brew that up on the next app. Have a little chat about it. See what we think.
I'm excited for it. That bag might get robbed and taken back to my house.
No, I don't know about that.
Not quite sure.
Bought here.
You have to fight us, Kirky.
All right. Easy. If you were to make a prediction about what the coffee industry is going to look like 10 years from now, so it's 2024, 10 years from now, what do you foresee it kind of happening?
I've been thinking about this question. I want to be hopeful, but I think we've got some big challenges that the industry is going to be navigating over the next decade. Climate change being one.
I guess we're already kind of grappling with that one now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if in 10 years' time we'll look back at this time and go, God, we had so many great coffees just at our fingertips and we were so spoiled. I do worry about the future. I don't know if it'll be more polarized and there'll be like really special lots and then just more commodity style lots, but that middle maybe falling out a bit. It's really interesting just even again being in Colombia and we buy a lot of micro lots from there, but actually some of the best buying we can do is supporting some of the regional blends that come from several producers and are bought together. So we try and balance the way that we buy to get these beautiful 85, 86 scoring regional blends and then micro lots from single producers. I think I really hope that we're still drinking and have this beautiful choice of coffees. But I think as an industry, we're going to have to evolve. I think we're going to have to accept paying more for coffee. I think particularly in Australia, we're going to have to charge more for coffee.
Yeah.
When you travel around the rest of the globe, everyone is charging more for their coffee. And in Australia, it's been so inelastic and so fixed because of the nature of the market and it being so competitive. But I think we have to start charging more for coffee. In the States, I was paying upwards of $8 US plus a tip when I was there for coffee.
I remember when I was in Denmark, like a long time ago, like 10 years ago, like sometimes it was like the equivalent of like $20 or something, like $15 for a coffee.
Yeah. And it might mean that those coffee experiences are really treasured and valued and less frequent as a result. But yeah.
Do you think the human side of coffee, sorry to cut you off, do you think the human element of making coffee and going to a cafe will still remain?
Yes.
There's a lot of technology coming out. A lot of people think, there's going to be automation, this, that, and the other. But do you think the human element of going to a cafe will always be there?
Yeah, I think it's what customers value. I think there'll be tools that make baristas' lives easier, but I think that human element is so important. It's the same thing that makes the coffee important, is decommodifying the coffee, bringing the people that are producing that coffee to life and telling their stories, so important. And if that's specialty coffees, the biggest risk is having a coffee that doesn't have a face and a story and a name behind it. So I think that will be important. But I also think probably there'll be more people making coffee at home as well. I think we're already seeing that now, and I think that will continue to grow. You're
probably more, I guess, qualified to speak on this than most people in the coffee industry. Since about 2020, let's go 2019, what like proportion of your customers are buying online compared to what it was before? Like, do you think has the rate of people brewing at home just increased like that since?
Yeah, like for us, part of our business model for Market Lane, because we're just doing coffee, has been really focused on trying to encourage people to brew coffee at home. And the reason we brew all of our filter coffee by hand and in front of people is we want people to see how easy it is and to connect to that process and ritual of making coffee. If you walk into any of our spaces, the beans are really prominent. We really want people to buy coffee and make it at home, and we want to make it easy and accessible. We definitely saw during COVID a lot more people starting to brew coffee at home, and it's stuck. So it hasn't reduced since people have started to return to work. I think people have really connected. And I think in these very inflationary times, it's a much cheaper way to consume coffee is to make it yourself at home.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, just more and more people have transitioned easily to that. You kind of struck, I guess, since like reflecting on the Monmouth days, you were kind of there already, right? You were kind of giving people the opportunity to taste it so they could buy something to go home.
Yeah.
And that's something you probably implement now.
Yep.
Well, we're at just about at the end. Sorry, did you have something?
No, just this is a bit awkward to ask. I might actually have to just jump up. I'm actually just feeling a bit unwell at the moment. Feeling a bit flushed.
There's a bit here. There's a bit going on here.
I'm feeling a bit flushed.
Where's the bit?
I think it's time for an extra hot take with 2 sugars. Really couldn't get through that one. I was really committing.
Fleur, did you at all think he was flustered?
No.
The bullshitometer was up on high.
I did. I'm like, what are you staring at?
For a second there, I was like, it does look like he's choking off a bit.
Literally. I was like, mate.
This is the part of the show where we give our extra hot take on the coffee industry. Fleur, have you prepared one for us today?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's
God.
all right.
Oh boy,
That's all right.
You're gonna have to cook one up on the fly.
We'll see how you go. We can go first. Basically, what we do is we just say like a hot take about the industry in whatever way. It may be about how coffee is served, customers, buying, any of that kind of stuff, home coffee. I can start with mine so you can get an idea of what we're talking about if you want. And I don't know if my hot take applies to your cafes, so I could be throwing you under the bus here with this one. My extra hot take with 2 sugars is it should be illegal to run a cafe without having a puck press, an automatic tamping device. Now, if you look up, 28% of all work safety claims in the hospitality industry are to do with wrist injuries. And when you have staff in there making thousands of coffees a day, pushing down, placing pressure, leaning on it in a weird way, they're already standing and leaning behind machines. Everyone should have to have some kind of automatic tamper so you can take care of your staff. Dan Dick, I'm looking at you.
All right. This is an interesting one. I don't even know if I could adapt back to manually tamping everything. Have you got puck press in the stores?
We do.
Yeah.
There's generations of baristas that have never tamped.
Yeah. Well, we discuss this all the time. And it's like, it's just, you're right, Rowan. It should be like a walk-on start. You should have a puck press. Dan Dick, get your act together. I'm all for it.
Some people talk about like, oh, it's taking the art of the coffee making away. I'm like, look at the giant espresso machine in front of you. That's a giant device that's made to like help make coffee. You know, if you're looking at things that are technology, that's the first thing that's on your counter.
Although the next thing I think will probably be, there's all the distribution tools that are coming out now. I wonder if there'll ever be like an all-in-one distributor and tamping.
Or there'll be some kind of new technology that comes out, like there'll be some like vibrations thing or something that, you put it in, it's electromagnetics going through there. You'll have Jack Simpson's wave prod just jamming in there and sending waves through the coffee.
So they're introducing electromagnetic waves to espresso now, Fleur. Can you believe that?
No.
Well, they're doing it.
Got to join the proteins in the coffee together.
Yeah. Bind the molecules.
Have you got into any of these like wild, all these coffee things that are happening with distribution and pucks and ice? And have you ever even tried like the cold extraction, like when you do it over the ice, like metal ball?
I really wanted to try that when we were in the States, but we didn't get to it. But no, the more techie stuff I leave to Jason at Market Lane. He loves getting into all that stuff.
Do you ever put cinnamon sticks or orange rinds into the portafilter and then make an espresso?
No, but when we were in the States, the thing that was quite shocking was we're talking to some industry friends there and they said 40 to 50% of their sales were matcha lattes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, matcha's taken off in a big way. Yeah. What do you think about matcha?
I don't like it.
Yeah, it tastes like carpet, doesn't it?
Grass.
Yeah, grass.
You said you came round to it.
Look, I did, but my take on it is it's like smoking. Like you do it, you don't really like it. It's addictive, and that to me is matcha.
It's good for you.
Well, yeah, debatable, but like it's just kind of you have a few, you're like this sucks, but I want more.
I didn't get that. But we also we drank a lot of sweet drinks there, and
everything. It's like we talk about signature drinks here, but over there it's like
sweet
there's so
potato.
much cream and there's so many different drinks. There's much like that's the thing I say with matcha. I'm like, it's just taking grass, but then you're adding so many sweeter things to it. It's like strawberries, coconut, vanilla, like honey. It's just like wanting to have a sweet drink and then. Which I will say, matcha when you can balance it out, that like sweetness with, that kind of grassiness can be great. But as itself, matcha is pretty intense.
Tough sell. But have you ever noticed, on an unrelated note, that there's Mont Blancs are popping up everywhere now?
Yeah.
So the good old fashioned Mont Blanc at Good Measure. Have you seen and or heard of the Mont Blanc?
No.
So it's like an iced filter coffee drink with a layer of fresh cream that's whipped or whatever.
Like a Jaffa. It's got orange in it.
But there's places in America doing it now, and I think it's all based off the Melbourne one.
I think a lot of it does come from that. But those guys claim, like they said it when they were on the pod, they didn't invent that.
They helped popularize it a lot.
Yeah, they definitely helped popularize it. They were saying they sell 500 a day during the week and 800 a day on the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People.
But that sounds delicious. That doesn't sound too bad.
Those guys were like cocktail guys. So they're like mixing, balance, like everything is like really beautifully layered. I was having it at the end of the hype when I first tried it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be disappointed here. Like, how good's can a coffee with some cream be? And I was like, no, it's pretty damn good.
I'm not a big cream guy, but those guys, they manage it well. I'm going to hit you with my hot take. And honestly, this is 5's too many, but here we go. Cafes should offer no more than 5 types of milk. If you offer any more than that, I just don't even know how you get things done. Like, and I have this problem right now, right, where we offer full cream, skim, oat, almond, and soy. That's a big stable of milks to offer. But every weekend, there's people coming to the hotel that's next to us, and they come asking for lactose-free milk. And so and they're from Queensland. Queenslanders love the lactose-free milk. So do I have to sub one in? They're always complaining to me, but 5's, they're always saying, "Oh, Kirk, you should offer lactose-free as well." But 5 is too many. 5 is too many. I think you do too.
Yeah, we have dairy and oat.
Yeah, and
this famously stands by because you never offered soy, right?
We did, and then we took it away.
Oh, well, so it was from a learning experience because I'm assuming your coffee is probably react in an interesting way to soy.
We were selling a lot of curdled lattes and we weren't proud of them.
Because what's the side of that? So the soy is going to, I've found like it reacts more in like more acidic coffees than that. So as soon as you have like a more specialty style, roasting style, soy is just going to be butchered. You really need like a dark Italian roast to be going okay with soy milk for it to taste good.
Yeah, soy milk and coffee just aren't a thing anymore. I feel like oat milk's just completely taken over the...
Well, my statement for soy milk is I call it the millennial alternative milk because it's all we had when we were coming up and it was like the one option outside of dairy. So then everyone had it. Bonsoy kind of came out and everyone was like, oh, this is the best tasting one. And then you get used to that flavor. It's nutty. It's like over the top. Then when you don't have it, you're like, where's that nutty flavor? And so I feel like it's still millennials out there that are just stuck on their soy days. But I don't think anyone under the age of 30 is drinking soy milk.
Yeah, soy milk's good with a matcha. I will tell you that. If you're going to have a matcha or a chai, soy milk's the way to go.
All right.
Now, Fleur, did you cook up an extra hot take and all that? You don't have to.
I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if it's a hot take.
Hey, we can take mild takes. We can take lukewarm takes.
I reckon EA sugarcane process for decaffeinating coffee is where it's at. Super excited.
All right.
I love that.
So say it again. EA processing.
For decaffeinating coffee is where it's at. I'm really excited about it.
So can I ask you, if you haven't done decaf up until now, why are you suddenly getting into decaf?
Because we tasted it and couldn't believe how delicious it was. So
that's an amazing answer, straight to the point. Because we had it and it was good.
It was good. It was delicious. And I think up until that point, I'd never had a decaf that was delicious. We're doing it in Colombia, so you're not sending the coffee to Mexico or Canada to be processed. So it's really easy. We can choose the coffee that we're getting decaffeinated. And so we're buying a coffee that we already buy, we already love, and we're decaffeinating it. And we're not losing the essence of what makes that coffee special. So really excited. I never thought I'd be excited about decaf.
Will you be a decaf drinker when this comes in?
Maybe in the afternoons if I've had 2 or 3 coffees and I still want one, but shouldn't have the caffeine. Yeah.
Well, please send some back. We would love to try it on the pod, give our thoughts, get this decaf going. That kind of brings us to the end, I think, of the episode. I just want to say I'd heard so many lovely things about you working in the industry, but having to have you here on the pod, thank you so much for your time. And what a pleasure, because I'm very inspired by everything that you're doing and your approach to it. Really appreciate you taking the time to come down and sit with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on, Fleur. And it's an interview I've wanted for a long time. And honestly, I want to be friends after this.
Yay.
We should totally be friends.
Yeah, let's be friends.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Well, you got to come by the shop. I mean, you're just, round the corner. Yeah. So we'll get the wood-fired pizza oven going, have a big pizza party.
Amazing. Sounds good.
If you want to send us a message, send us a hot take, see what's going on, shoot us an email at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. You can find us on all the socials on there. We're uploading reels, different little things, hot takes across there. What else we got to say? Today's episode, again, brought to you by our amazing sponsors, Eco Barista.
Eco Barista.
They're B Corp certified. They're making great products, recyclable. They're making compostable cups and bags. So make sure to check them out. You can get 15% off your first order when you visit their site. What's that site?
ecobarista.com.au.
ecobarista.com.au. Thank you again for tuning in. It's been an amazing episode. And Fleur, what a guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Fleur Studd.
Oh my God.
Ah, she's a natural.
Thank you.
Just like that.
Oof.